So the last panel is how to survive and thrive as an elite marketer, something I think all of us are familiar with. And it's an esteemed panel which I am thrilled to moderate. Francesca Cardarelli, Chief Marketing Officer, McDonald's Canada. Chris Hewitt, Global Head of Brand and Marketing Technology for Sun Life. Katie Williams, Chief Marketing Officer, US, Haleon. And Navneet Singh, Vice President of Marketing Network Security at Palo Alto Networks. So have them come on up. Any particular order? Do you guys want me to go here?
Yeah, sure.
Where are we supposed to sit?
We lined up by our brand here.
All right. Well, this is such a great group. I'm so excited to hear from you all. I think I've had some individual calls with some of you, but I think a topic, and I started out with my opening remarks talking about this is really a time, I think, to thrive, and it's so exciting to be in this industry right now. But just want to get your perspective, thinking about from surviving to thriving. We see these cycles kind of back and forth, right, as CMOs, from survival to thriving. In your opinion, what does thriving look like, and how do you see that playing out in your role in your industry right now? I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Sit right here.
Got it. So hi, everybody. I'm Katie Williams with Haleon. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what thriving looks like. I think, and so, quite honestly, what we're just leaning into is sort of a comfort level with change and having a level of resiliency that allows us to continue to operate in such a changing landscape. So for us, I guess, thriving is sort of having an organization that's supported in that change, that has an organization that, people that feel like they feel safe being curious, and stepping into those places where they can move from a dabbler to a disruptor. And I think, really being humble and recognizing that, we don't know what we don't know. And so the best thing to do is start to, learn from each other, dive in, those kinds of things. So that for us right now, that's what thriving looks like.
Yeah.
Is kind of having that change mindset.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Nav, let me go to you next.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm with Palo Alto Networks. When I think of surviving versus thriving, I actually think that for us, it happens all the time, meaning surviving and thriving can happen both simultaneously. So we have, for example, the business that I lead has 3 components: core business, growth business, and incubation business. And in growth business, it is surviving. We are already known for network security, and every dollar that you spend has to be justified. While in growth, and especially in incubation business, for example, AI security, where we have to grow from 0 to $100 million, for example, there is that thriving component where we get more of a seat at the table. So if we have a target, business target of $100 million, let's say sales or whatever, X million dollars, we then convert that into number of opportunities based on deal size, and based on that, how many accounts we need to target, right? So that's where we get a seat at the table. We go and figure out which personas we should target. So we figured out, for example, AI Center of Excellence is a new persona, so we educated sales. We figured out that customers not only want us to focus on security, but they also want AI to stay on brand. So that informs product roadmap. So we become advisors to sales, product, and so on. And that, in our view, is thriving. So for us, it takes place both in parallel.
Great. All right, Chris, I know you had an interesting perspective when we talked on the phone. You want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Chris from Sun Life. In the US, we've got a health business. In Canada, we're wealth, health, and insurance. And in Asia, we're a mix of those two. So in my role, definitely seeing that for marketers and for wherever industry we play in, Thriving is actually about being able to be more proactive. We're in a highly regulated, somewhat transactional industry. And so oftentimes the marketing teams or the organization gets called with an issue or a problem to solve, sometimes late or put the fire out. I think thriving for marketers, especially in our industry, is being able to be more proactive. We have an idea we can execute on, whether it's faster because of AI, or we have some insight we've learned to help protect the brand. That's really what thriving is about from a marketing perspective. And I think more and more as a brand, that's what we're trying to do, is have those more proactive conversations versus reactive. And that's I think, the opportunity ahead. And AI and a number of other things are sort of making that easier and safer for us to do.
Great. Francesca?
Yeah, awesome. Hi, everyone. Francesca from McDonald's Canada. I feel like you guys don't need me at the end of this because my answer is basically a combination of
You'll go
Start-
first.
we'll start with you next.
Yeah, no pressure next time. But I think it's really well said. For me, it's a combination of mindset as well as how we think about the business. I think on the mindset side, I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, for anybody who knows her work, and she often says, be the learner, not the knower. And I try to channel that every day, even with my team, as we think about, was today a win or was today a learning day? And what have we taken out of it? And I think we've all been in the survival mindset for so long, which for us really is being reactive. And whatever phone call comes in, whatever fire you're trying to put out, how do you move out of that and not just into proactivity, but how do we move back to inspiration and aspiration? And so I've been trying to spend a lot of time with my team recently too, thinking about how do we step back from the day-to-day? How do we think about the bigger picture? How do we think about what we want our brand to look like 3, 5, 10 years from now and start working towards North Stars again rather than just the emergency that's in front of us? And honestly, the ethos that I've been using with them is like, this is our time now. The door is opening again for us to shift out of survival and start doing cool shit again. We get to work for cool brands. We have money. We get to play. Let's go play for a bit because we're not always going to have these windows. So trying to figure out where we can reinvigorate the fun into the work too again.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and it's so hard to get away from that day-to-day, right? That survival, because I think we all feel it, but it's so important, and especially with AI, and we focus a lot on creativity and taking time out to do that and to learn and be humble and all that. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about the evolving seat at the table, and I think this is something that as marketers, we're always kind of, a seat at the table, right? It's hard because it's historically been harder to sometimes quantify and prove, how we're helping drive growth, et cetera. I was just curious how your seat at the leadership table has evolved and changed. And also, what does cross-functional influence look like today, and especially in AI? Francesca, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, okay, well, this is no pressure now. For me, honestly, I've never thought of marketing as a support function. I've always tried to really understand and hone our skill sets to say, what can we bring to be the thought leaders, to be the partners that help advance the business? And I think that's a really different mindset when you start from that orientation rather than looking at how it's evolved over time. And so for sure, a ton has changed, but I think if we always look at us having a place at the table and us having a strong voice, then we get to sit there and we get to hold it. For me, a big part of it, though, is how do we use our data? How are we actually grounding ourselves in being fact-led while being consumer-obsessed? And I think if you compare both of those things together, it helps for you to earn your voice at the table and keep it. And then the other thing that I would say is I feel like on average, we probably get reputations as marketers of being at the jazz hands in the room and maybe not always being fully connected to the business.
Yeah.
But go out and learn about how the rest of your business works. Learn how your P&L functions. Learn what motivates either your end user or your CEO or your CFO so that you can speak their language. And then we are storytellers. That's what we do every single day. Then just position your story to the right audience of what motivates and inspires them. And I think that's a big part of us keeping and continuing to drive the conversation in those boardrooms.
Yeah, I love that. It's great. Think of the buyer journey and buyer personas with our own internal stakeholders too, right? It's great. Nav, do you have a perspective on this?
Yes, so in the past, we were just talking about how many leads are you bringing? Right, so now it's a little bit more nuanced conversation. So our North Stars now have 3 different pillars. One is increase brand equity, which means we increase consideration, which increases at-bats. Second is to deepen CXO relationships. So we realize as we're becoming a bigger company that we need to open doors for sales. And to open doors, we really create very curated experiences where CXOs can be invited and we open doors for sellers. Third is for commercial accounts, we still look at MELs and bringing marketing source pipeline. So when we look at all of these three, now marketing is being seen as a growth architect, and where sellers are not able to get into white space accounts, have called on it multiple times, now there is a really curated experience where we can invite somebody and start to cultivate that relationship. That takes time, but now the CMO would be seen as a growth architect.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's so right. I just maybe a pulse check in the room. How many people are having challenges growing their business right now? Wow, you guys are good.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
It's hard to grow. It's incredibly hard to grow in this, regardless of what marketplace you're in. Growth is becoming harder and harder. So I would say my experience is, and I work for a consumer package, it's healthcare, but it's consumer brands like Advil and Sensodyne and Tums and Emergency. So we are usually, there having that growth, the conversation, but I would say no more so than now. Because what marketers do is we grow. Our job is to grow businesses. So the seat at the table should be bigger than ever.
Yeah.
Because we are the ones that understand and how to grow businesses. And my job and my team's job is to help the broader organization understand that we every day should be making decisions in service of our consumer, period, full stop. Every decision you make should be through that lens. Consumer insight isn't just a philosophy, it's a decision-making framework for everyone, whether you're in tech, you're in operations, you're in marketing. So we are the purveyors and the understanders of how to do that and how to do that well. So we should have a big seat at everyone's table. And then the second thing that we do is, we really, yes, having all the data is important, understanding how to draw insights from that data, but really recognizing that, it is more and more difficult to find the growth. We have more and more tools to enable that, but bringing that connection through the organization, I think, is what we do. So I would think most marketers, hopefully if you're not telling that growth story, you should be, because your seat at the table should only be getting bigger right now.
And I love the way you placed it is we are often the voice of the customer. We have that great opportunity, and we should have a seat at the table, that alone, right? Being the voice of the customer. It's a great point. Chris, did you want to comment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first I'll touch on the customer piece. I think there's so many more tools now that are advancing rapidly, and what's happening with search. Actually, we have an easier seat at the table to say, folks don't know exactly what's going on. We're best positioned to start to explain that. I love the thought around, making sure we're always viewed as a strategic partner. I feel the same way. I think what's changing a little bit is the marketing team or marketers or CMOs can now create some different advocates at the table. So I think getting the CFO on board and your CEO on board and your head of sales used to be the way in. I think right now, a lot of brands are under scrutiny. All of us client expectations are getting higher. It's harder to fight what's happening, if it's in the media, et cetera. And so I think for any brand's benefit, if you can start to make allies with your chief risk officer, right, with your head of HR from an employee brand perspective, all of a sudden you can just activate that offensive and defensive sort of message at the boardroom table. And that, I think, is creating a lot more credibility. Yeah. And I think the marketing function, knowing the client, you really can also answer questions like, why would the competition do this? And marketers are much better positioned to go, well, we can find out, or we think this, or here's likely why. And I find that that's the question that's coming a lot more often to the marketing team is why would that happen? Or why did the client feel that way? And so the more you can bring that thinking, I think the stronger your seat is at the table.
Yeah, that's great. And it gets to, and I think you and I had talked when we one-on-one, our stakeholders are changing too a little bit, right? I mean, I even think with AI, so the relationship with the CIO and CHRO are so important right now. So it's interesting to see that evolve. So next question, AI and emerging technology, of course, has to be on here. With AI, agentic tools, and web transformation disrupting how we market, which we've been focusing on a lot today, how do you see the role of the marketers evolving from efficiency and cost cutting to delivering real value and differentiation? Does anyone want to take that one first?
I'm happy to take it.
Nav?
So a couple different things that come to mind are very similar to what Grant was saying in the previous session. So it's a little bit of a repeat, but I think it's okay for it to be a repeat because it means that different marketers are coming from different angles but arriving at similar conclusions. So one example where we use AI for is message testing. So in the past, very few people had access to a CIO to really do message testing.
Yeah.
Now we have that Google Gemini gem, which has been trained on different types of CIOs across different verticals. And now every PMM, every campaign manager, every field marketing person has access to that, and they can customize that message. And that means more response rate. That means ultimately better conversion.
Yeah.
Right? So that, and the message resonates. And second example I would give is very similar to, again, Grant. We used AI for creating campaigns. So in the past, creating a campaign that was specific to an industry, it took forever, took a very long time. Now, in a month, we were able to create a campaign. So the concept of the campaign was like this. We're going to take different innovators from the past, like Benjamin Franklin and Marie Curie and so on, and Alexander Graham Bell, and say how these innovators disrupted and came up with something new. Now CIOs are enabling today's disruptors who are deploying AI applications. And we, being a cybersecurity company, can help you say yes to them and deploy them safely. So that's something that we were able to create and really create a common thread from Alexander Graham Bell to today's innovators in telecom communications. So similarly, 10 different verticals, the campaign was created in 1 month. So if you are okay, I would love to show a 1-minute video that was also created with just AI, just like Grant created that. So if you could play that video, please.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Genius often reveals itself in the moments no one else sees coming. That's what innovators like Benjamin Franklin knew, bravely forging ahead during a time when others dared not to go. And what he brought to the world was electric.
This is a game changer.
AI is changing the game at lightning speed, inspiring today's leaders to reimagine how they deliver energy to billions of homes. Yet AI brings risks that powers down many organizations' plans. Could someone hijack this technology?
Prisma Airs, the world's most comprehensive AI security platform, allows you to bravely launch your own innovations without the risk of someone taking over your AI engine, so that your own ideas can energize the world. Be a genius. Deploy bravely.
That's great.
So this was created pretty quickly and all using AI.
Wonderful. That's great.
So it's not just about cutting costs and doing this in an agile fashion. This is something that we were not able to do it like vertical marketing in such an in-depth fashion.
It's a great example, back to the question about value, really starting to leverage it not just for efficiency, cost cutting, but actual value. Francesca, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting topic, and I feel like it's one, as a community, I don't know that we've actually debated enough what the right roles are for it to play. So I think we, interestingly enough, as big of an organization as we are, we're slower on the technology side. And so this is one where I actually think we are much more in the learning phase than we are in the knowing or deploying phase at this point. We have a couple tools on board. We're playing around with Copilot. We're working on some Gemini stuff and a couple of other platforms that we're starting to invest in. But for the most part, they're large language models to help us with deck writing, script writing. We are not at creative stages yet. And I think there's actually some controversial opinions right now on to what degree do we leverage these.
Yeah.
And so from my point of view, what I share with my team too is, one, if you aren't playing with these tools on your own, in your own time off of the company networks too, do it. Don't share confidential information, of course, but go plan your trips, ask it questions about your life, learn how they work because you yourself don't want to get left behind. but also let's be thoughtful. And the mantra that I kind of have with them is it's more of a compass than it is a GPS. And so I find, especially in my role now, the network of people I can call on a Tuesday afternoon to brainstorm with or workshop something, it's not the same as when I started in my career. And I'm finding that these tools are actually very helpful to take me from a white blank page to some form of ideation, because I think also when you start to get to these roles, you become much better at giving feedback than actually doing the work, which is concerning in a whole other way. But it allows you to respond to something, which I think is really helpful for how my brain is wired most of the day now. And so it gets me over the hump of not knowing where to begin to have something to react to and build from and build off of. But creatively, and I think this might be maybe a polarizing view, but I'll talk tomorrow about this too. Our biggest focus at McDonald's right now is building fandom and building connection. And I think how we tell those stories and how we deepen those relationships on a human-to-human, fan-to-fan level, AI is not there yet. And I think it's got to be paralleled with, so being a Canadian, we have some language laws in our market between rest of Canada and Quebec, where everything has to be bilingual or single lingual in some of those markets. AI could be a great tool for us to dub things over, for us to save on efficiencies. And we've toyed around with some of that in some places. But the reality is that culture is so different that we've spent, 5 decades building different types of relationships with that communities, telling different types of stories. Still complementary, but with the nuance that actually helps us stand apart. And so, to be honest, I'm a bit conflicted on this one when it comes to how we deploy creatively, because I think it could be a very slippery slope of us pushing for efficiency to such a degree that we lose the magic touch of how our brands connect with consumers.
Very interesting. That could be a whole other topic. I love that. Katie.
Yeah, so we've really dove in on the insight side. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of information that we have generated over the years, or we partner with, that really helps us understand people's, where they are in their health journey. And a good example, so we recently created agents that helped us understand the huge seismic shift that's happening with GLP-1 adoption and consumers starting to really have, significant changes in their health journey driven by this new breakthrough drug usage. And you would think, well, what does, somebody who makes Tums and Benefiber and Centrum have to do with GLP-1s? Well, the majority of people that start GLP-1s, if they come off of it, it's usually in the first 6 months, and it's because they have really challenging side effects, whether it's gastrointestinal issues, heartburn. They are starting to experience, muscle loss because of lack of, protein and nutrition. They need more fiber in their diet. Well, I have a portfolio of products that are uniquely suited to support people on that journey, with over-the-counter products like Benefiber and Tums and Gas-X and, all of those things. But we can't, due to privacy and things like that, we can't go and ask people if they're taking these medications. We can't go capture data in that way based on, the regulatory requirements, but we can leverage agentic AI to help us better understand how do we identify people who may be considering a GLP-1 journey? And how do we identify people who might be in the first 6 months of their GLP-1 journey? And what's interesting to them? Like, what are the biggest challenges they have? If we hadn't done that work, so we created agents that helped us. They were pre-GLP-1, post-GLP-1, on GLP-1. We learned things like the dating habits of people on GLP-1 change. And you can identify people based on the change in their dating habits on whether or not they may be on GLP-1s, or their eating habits have evolved, or their fitness habits are evolving. And so we would have never been able to uncover those connections in the speed in which we had, and then talk to those agents about possible solutions that would support that lifestyle change in the way that we can today. So we're diving head in that space.
Yeah.
And it's really helping us bring a tremendous amount of disparate data together to help
Yeah.
really create meaningful solutions for people in their health journeys.
That's great. And I work in a very highly regulated industry, so I can appreciate that. I know, Chris, you do as well. And it's always interesting to see how you're able to use it to your advantage like
Yeah.
that, work around some of data privacy
Right.
obviously being huge in health. That's great. Let's talk a little bit, and you teed this up a little bit, Francesca, around kind of the risks and responsibilities as a CMO, just even when you got to kind of that slippery slope. And we have to think about this with AI, right? So the risks around content, consent, and preference management are higher than ever. How do you balance innovation with brand protection in an era when one misstep can have huge consequences? Anyone want to take that?
Yeah,
Not even missed
sure.
up of our own, but
And I think we've seen some of this in the news lately too,
I mean,
right?
it's not like anybody's talking about pain medication right now, you know. So yeah, it changes in an instant. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Obviously we need to think more and more about that in highly regulated industry like the ones we're in. I think back to the earlier discussion about who the partners are, like the best thing we can do now is start to highlight some of those issues and those risks and say, like, you got to start somewhere. Like, I think sometimes there's a view of like, we haven't figured it out yet, so we'll wait and see. I think those days are over. We got to
Yeah.
champion like early active, just like we'd fail fast in a marketing campaign. We actually kind of have to fail fast in getting out there to manage these things that clients are ultimately demanding. But I think the reality is that there's a positive to that, which is if you want to have true personalization and two-way conversations with clients and make sure that your channels are working effectively, like this is the way in.
Uh-huh.
And it's high risk, but I think it's actually going to be more and more high reward, and that's the way we're trying to frame it. I think the other piece is like we are realizing that as much as we have strong internal partners and understanding of the regulations and how we should engage, like, we need help. So we're working differently with partners there to say we're bringing this in.
Yeah.
We're not going to try to figure it out on our own anymore, which
Yeah.
is kind of unusual for an insurance company because we maybe typically used to do that. So we're acting early and we're trying to partner with the best we can to figure it out for clients.
That's great. Yeah. Francesca, any perspectives here?
Yeah, I mean, this is not my favorite part of the job, I'll be honest. Like, these are the things that keep you up, where
Yeah.
when your team sends you, of the 6 things sitting in your inbox that are urgent that night, and 2 of them you actually need to stop and think about, and you're like, I don't have enough time in the day to stop and think about them, and you're trying to make these very quick judgment calls. It's challenging and it's hard, and sometimes we're going to get it right, and sometimes we're going to get it wrong. And I think making sure that your organization is holding hands when there is a big enough risk that you might get it wrong, that you're going to get it wrong together, I think is really critical and important, so that often, and I'll build on Katie, what you were saying of like, we are the seat at the table, if I'm being totally honest. As a consumer brand, my job is to drive the demand generation for our organization. And when we get it wrong, I want to know that my CFO and my CEO have my back and that I'm not going rogue on it. And so I think that is a big part of it, of a decision that makes me probably a little bit queasy, a little bit of, a niggle in my stomach. How do I make sure then that I'm bringing the right stakeholders on board to make sure that we are collectively looking at it, but also holding hands together on the decision? And then I think the other part, it's funny because we just went through a legal risk assessment maybe like a month ago, which was an internal leadership workshop of all of us determining how far on the spectrum of risky to reserved are you. And it was quite fascinating, and not to anybody's surprise in that boardroom, I was on the very risky side and our CFO was on the very adverse side. And we kind of came to this agreement that if I'm pushing for something really hard and she's super uncomfortable with something, we've probably found the middle ground.
Yeah.
And that might be a good place to start.
Yeah.
And so I think our lesson coming out of that was, how do you put together what that board of directors look like so that you have differing perspective on people assessing the risk? And then where do you find that right healthy tension? And so I will never walk out of a room with my CEO feeling like I've gotten it all the way to bright, and she will never walk out of the room 100% comfortable. And that's when we say we've nailed it.
Yeah.
And so I think it takes a bit of time and a bit of massaging, but for us, it's been about finding those people to have those dialogues.
Oh, that's great. And I feel like as marketers, because we're always trying to push the envelope, we're creatives, we are less risk averse a lot of
Totally.
times, right? Especially if you work in a highly regulated industry, we're always the ones saying, well, let's do this. And then, but so it's good to have that balance. You're right. And the sounding boards. So Nav, I'm going to ask you about this. I'm really passionate about this one. As we talk about continuous learning and curiosity, thriving requires constant learning now more than ever. We've seen this. You have to be very humble. I think you used the word, right, Katie? What practices, habits, or team initiatives have helped you and your organization stay curious and ahead of the curve?
Yeah, when ChatGPT burst onto the scene in November 22, I think 3 months after that, our CEO organized a leadership meeting, all VPs and above, and we called the AI leaders of the time, people who were working on Google Gemini, people who were working on IBM Watson, people who had created startups on AI, to learn from them. It was so new, we just didn't know what to do. But within 3 months, we were able to just learn from everybody, hear do's and don'ts and best practices. We launched pilots in different teams. So HR, marketing, finance, we all did pilots and came back in a few months to say, this is our pilot, this is what we can potentially use AI for. Even though they were very early and many of those projects didn't pan out, but it just gave people permission to try things. And it also, we had formed a AI regulatory committee which had guidelines on, we are ourselves a cybersecurity company. So people are pretty particular about just following guidelines. So we had created that guideline to make sure we stick to certain norms. But other than that, like, we really experimented. So letting people experiment, and then from a CIO perspective, we got permission to use Google Gemini for literally everything, because it is a contained version of AI, which is just to us, it is not used to train models. That's why we can use all sensitive information, including earnings calls before it becomes public, press releases before they become public. There are very few data points or types of data that we cannot put into AI. Like, for example, customers' passwords cannot be put into AI, source code cannot be, but almost everything else can be. So I think having the tools, having the right guardrails, having the right leadership backing, saying this is what you should experiment with, really gave us permission. And then in my team meetings, which happen about once in 2 weeks, I ask people to come in and share any experiments that they have done, and both failures as well as successes. And that has been really, really helpful.
I love that. That's great. Katie, anything on this?
Yeah, we've been in the process of really thinking about the concept of deliberate practice. I'm not sure if you've, I think the book Peak by Erickson, I don't recommend reading it. I do recommend listening to it because it's really, really thick. But it's a good listen.
Yeah.
It's a good listen. But my teams, for example, are really focused on the thought of deliberate practice, which ultimately is, if you think about elite athletes, they don't just, do the same movements every day or practice. Okay, I'm going to hit. Serena's like, I'm just hitting with no, there's very specific coaching involvement. So you mentioned how you have team members come back in, say what they experience. That's a really good coaching culture that you're starting to build, which is a really important part of deliberate practice. I think also being very specific about performance metrics along the way, not just the end result, but what are the things that give you indication that you're making some changes and movements, and really focusing on setting goals around those performance metrics along the way. There is a British rowing team that won a gold medal, and they always talked about, is it going to make the boat go faster? They would really focus on, strip everything away except for the things that will make the boat go faster. And even if they won a race leading up to the Olympics, they said, okay, but how did we do on those performance metrics along the way? Did we have the right splits? Was our rowing efficiency strong? And if it wasn't, then okay, well then next time we have to focus on our efficiency. So because this win here in this pre-Olympic, competition isn't going to be Olympic ready unless we fix these things along the way. And so really being clear on the things that you're trying to work on, what are the critical skills needed to be successful in our jobs today, and how do you create a culture of deliberate practice and coaching around it to help upskill everybody in the organization.
That's great. And I love the example you were giving to with the rowing. It's really like data, performance based on data. It's
Yeah.
great. Francesca, Chris, any?
Yeah, I would love to add if that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as people in our seats, it is our responsibility to develop talent. And I even look back on my career, and I would not be here if it weren't for a lot of leaders who took chances on me, who put me in courses, who, gave me the time to sit and coach. And so I wake up every day thinking, like, who is it that I'm helping today, or where can I help, the trajectory of somebody or the way that they're thinking about something or develop a skill. And so anytime, even when I'm giving feedback, it's how do you share the right context and color for them to really understand why my perspective might be different than theirs because of other things going on in the organization. But there's one thing culturally that maybe I'll just highlight, because I think you guys have all added really, really great points as well. One thing that I did with my last team, actually, before I moved back into marketing, was work on what I felt like was a fear-based culture of people really not speaking up because they were so afraid of getting it wrong. And they had really good ideas because they were sitting in the work every single day, and they'd all talk to each other about it at lunch. But then when we'd get into the room, they'd all look to me to answer the question. And I was like, well, I don't know. You guys are the ones sitting in it all day. I don't know what the right answer is. And so we created something that in our monthly meetings as a total department, we rolled out. And I haven't done it with when I've been back in marketing yet, but this group was sizable that we could manage it. And I called it was a burnt burger and an extra nugget. And they were just two very silly forms of recognition. And I will tell you, I had so much resistance at the beginning of it. And when I went back to marketing, to hear that whatever 8-9 months later, they're still doing it was like the most fulfilling thing I think I've heard in the organization. But what it is the extra nugget is a piece of recognition for somebody once a month who's gone over and above. It can only be nominated by a peer on the team. So you do not get to self-identify. I did this really hard thing this month. I have to say, well, actually, Chris has been working his ass off, and I really want to call him out, and I want the whole team to know how amazing he's been doing. And everybody does that, and then we vote, and we pick the one winner, and there's, some shine points or some recognition tools that we've got to reward them. The burnt burger is actually the one that I wanted to make space for, which is only self-nominated. And you have to self-identify something that you screwed up that month so that the rest of the department could actually learn from you. And again, I will be honest, the first time we did this, the only people who offered something were the leaders on my team.
Yeah.
Because I had told them they need
felt
to go in
safe.
and offer something.
And they felt safe to do it.
And it probably took about 3 very painful months of just us self-nominating each other and the team learning that they could laugh at us and the team learning that we were human and that we also made mistakes every day before they started getting comfortable with it and really running with it. But it's just been really amazing to see the practice that it's evolved into now, because every month they walk around and they're like, oh my God, you guys wouldn't believe it, but I totally screwed up on this thing. Like, next time you're doing it, watch out for this and watch out for that. But the good news is I could course correct it and figure it out. And it's just been awesome to see them really come into their shell of fully owning their ideas and feeling confident and comfortable enough to bring them forward.
Yeah, and you building that psychological safety for them to feel they can speak up. And if their leaders do it, then it's okay, right? Oh, that's great. Chris, did you wanna add?
If I could, love all these. I'm going to steal some of these when I go back. So absolutely agree. I think back to our discussion around, a seat at the table. And I think credibility is something that we as creatives can actually better utilize and be curious about the AI tools. But it's also about using this to partner differently about how we're showing the learning. And so at Sun Life, we're actively not just trying to show what we're learning from a marketing lens, but partnering with risk partners and saying, like, what exactly are you really worried about from a client lens, and how can we partner on that? And then showcase and actually get in front of some of these teams as a marketing group, start to explain how we're making a change and an impact. And it's added a lot of value, I think, on the technology side. We're utilizing AA to be more thoughtful around the capability that we want to create and that we want to test and learn, not just the technology that has to be built to do that. And so, being curious, adding some training, constant learning, yes, but we're trying to do some dual share outs where it's a partnership of a learning approach. And I think that's really helped us gain credibility with some of the partners who may not have always seen us as learning partners and curious partners. And they now see us as people that are like, hey, marketing might have a different lens on this problem from a client perspective. And then AI has sort of been an example of a way we're sort of driving some combined value. So, yeah.
Great. Well, I want to leave a few minutes for questions, so I'm just going to ask, and we have about 12 minutes left, but I want to ask each of you maybe to just a few kind of final words as you think about there's, mid-level, number of mid-level career folks in the audience, and would probably love to hear from you on how you've managed to get where you are and thrive as a marketer. And so if you were to give a few kind of words of advice, what might that be? I'll start with you, Katie.
Yeah, I think my biggest one is just staying curious. And if I think about when I started my career, I think Google had just maybe launched and Amazon was still just selling books, right? And
Yeah.
so the fact that I've been able to survive
Yeah.
this long with that level of change, it requires that just constant
Curious.
humility and curiosity.
Love
You
it.
have to be humble enough to be like, hey, I don't know this, but
Yeah.
curious enough to take action on it. So
That's
yeah.
great. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I was talking to a founder and the CEO of a startup. He said something that stuck with me. He said that when I really value somebody who asks me, "What are you worried about?" and takes on that challenge so that my worries are less. So typically when we do one-on-ones, right, we typically go in with, if I'm an employee, I'm going to a manager, I go in with my list of things that I need myself to be unblocked and so on, where I need direction and so on. Usually we don't go in with a question, what's worrying you and how can I help? And can I take something off of your plate? And that's something that I've remembered and has helped me.
I love that. One of my former CMOs said that, gave me that same advice. Always ask how you can help. And it does. It serves you really well. It's great.
Yeah.
Chris.
A couple things. I started my career not in marketing really, and chased marketing roles because they were where I think where the harder problems were and the cool work was, which you've all figured out. A quote that often sort of guides me is good marketing makes the company look smart. Great marketing makes the customer feel smart.
Oh.
And so why I use that or why it's helped me is because at the end of the day, if you've got that true customer insight and you know it and you've figured it out and you think you've captured it, it's really, really hard to argue because what you'll be taking to the business is, you're really solving a problem for them. So if you've got one of those, or if you're trying to get, to your next stage or whatever, like seek that out, use the insights, use the data, and then bring that to the table. I think the second piece is, and Francesca talked about it, which is you got to take time to learn the business because no matter how many years people have been in marketing, there's always this bias that marketing just is creative and hasn't thought through the problem and doesn't know the math. Well, you don't have to be a mathematician, but you got to know the right number to tell your story to get to that client impact and that benefit. And that'll just change the entire discussion with whoever it is around the table that we have a seat with. And so take time to learn that business. AI is actually a fantastic way to help you do that. You can learn a lot about, the margins and the math much quicker than we used to. So for me, those are two things that absolutely sort of guide, how I try to enact whatever I'm going to take a risk on. And it's usually served me well. And the last piece is with AI, fight quantity. Don't do more just because we can. You have to be the one saying quality. What can we measure and how can we show that impact? I think that's the biggest opportunity for marketers right now is to be the one with the quality voice at the table, even though people want us to do more faster. Yeah. That's not always the right way forward.
Yeah, that's great. And to that point, it's not just about the efficiency and volume, it's about the impact and the value, right?
That's right.
Sounds like you're on my leadership call this morning. That's
There
actually
you go.
I'll build, Katie, you said it earlier, but I think being skill oriented as you think about your career. So you have to own your career. Nobody will care about it more than you do. And that doesn't mean being a bulldozer and just trying to get to the next stage to get to the next stage, but you do have to drive it. And so get clear on what you want to do. And if you don't know what it is, do the discovery work and partner with your HR teams or set up coffees with people to really learn and understand what are the types of skills you want to grow into rather than the title you want to grow into. Because I also think titles change all the time and org structures change all the time. But what type of leader would you like to be? And then work backwards from there. And then the other one that I will say that I think has carried me along a lot of the way along is take the job nobody wants. there's a reason nobody wants it because it's hard and it's complicated. And you're probably going to learn a disproportional amount of skills from it than what your peer set will. And so if you're looking to really differentiate yourself, to stand out, to build that skill set faster or in a different way, I think those harder jobs are honestly, ironically, the easiest way to get there.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. I have not heard that before. It makes so much sense. All right. What a great panel. So I'm going to open it up to questions. We've got a little over 7 minutes. Take a few questions. Okay. Helen's got the mic back there.
Thank you for that, fellow CMO here. I'm gonna make a quick assessment. Marketing investments of the past are what's needed in the future is much different. Channel marketing, ecosystem partners, and human IP. My biggest challenge, and I'd be interested in, how do you take your CF no and turn him into a CF okay? Because they don't understand the investment that's going to be needed to actually start growing. So I'd appreciate any tips on that.
Great question. Anyone want to take that? Francesca?
I'm happy to start.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now that I have 2 mics? Yeah. I honestly think depending on the type of resistance you're experiencing, approaching it with a crawl, walk, run to prove it out. So what is your testing philosophy? How are you learning along the way? I think can be a huge unlock. So where do you just start small to build the business case and then go back and prove it out and scale it and prove it out again and scale it until you can get that full buy-in, to me is a bit of a foolproof way in. And then I think the other one is if you aren't using tools like ROI driven or MMAs or MMMs, whatever the newest version of it is from a marketing mix modeling perspective. I mean, you've got to speak numbers if you're talking to the CFO. You've got to be able to help them understand what you're getting back out of it. So I would invest in those things if you aren't already today.
Yeah. Great. Anyone else want to comment
I
on
would
that?
love
Chris?
to add, absolutely agree with that. My experience has been that good CFOs would rather have a guaranteed $1 savings than a possible like $20,000 savings, right? Like that's their mentality. And so, you know, to the comment on take a job, you know, people don't want, like fix a problem for the CFO that's about permanently reducing cost, right? Hey, this is what we did. We have X amount of touch points with the client. We can now automate that and do it twice as fast permanently. That's a very different discussion. And when you get your foot in the door with that type of thinking, the whole function is viewed differently as a problem solving function, not as a new solution team. Although we do that too. So trying things like that has always helped me get that start with the CFO. And once you're in, because they're data driven often and they want to have proof, then you can start having those discussions about we need more media, more dollars. We want to try something over here. And so it's not always the most glamorous way in, but I'd take that approach.
I love that. And both of you, there's a theme there. Get your foot in the door, right?
You got it.
Awesome. Anyone else or?
No, I think they covered it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's a CFO that's going to stop looking at the measurement and the so you just, you do have to sort of understand that, recognize that. But again, I think the crawl walk one definitely helps. To start the conversation and get it going for sure.
Great. All right. We have time for another question. There.
I've been doing a lot of reading or seeing that like the next generation of chief marketing officers are coming from social media. So I wanted to know what are you guys seeing? Is that even true? As a social media marketer myself, should I be disheartened that I'm never going to be a CMO because I'm a social media guy? So just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
I would say absolutely in this moment in time, there definitely is a creator economy, let's say, and it's important. I think what we're finding is, consumers really want to hear from people that have shared experiences, and that's where trust comes from nowadays. So as someone who's in healthcare, I think with a survey would say 82% of people trust what their doctor says. But 70 about their health needs, 72% trust their family and friends.
Wow.
It's not that big of a gap.
Wow, that's yeah.
It's like, so the reality is people want to hear from people that maybe experience what you're experienced, or tried something that you're considering trying, and it's the human sort of connection and understanding that is built through trust that, I think is incredibly important. And right now, one of the best mediums to sort of have that transaction is within the social space. So I think it's important for us to absolutely be, and I think people who understand that space, understand how to navigate within that, understand how to connect there, are absolutely vital to what we do right now.
I love that answer. It's a great point. Anyone else want to comment? Yeah.
Can I just build on it really quick? I agree with everything you said. And I think to get to the CMO role, you can't be any one thing.
No.
And so if you have grown up within a specific function, I think I would challenge you, if this is your ambition, then how do you get the right cross-marketing experience to round yourself out because of the vast degree of problems and challenges and opportunities that you're going to be working through? And anybody, I think, who would come to me in a single function saying, I've been a brand expert, or I've been a digital expert, or a social expert, I'd say that's great. But if you want to sit in this chair, you actually have to rotate through all of those things to really, truly understand it, to make those balanced decisions.
People make fun of me all the time because I'm like, oh, I did that.
Yeah.
Oh, I did that.
Yeah.
You're like, I did. Oh, she did it again. Like, it just, but you
got to be
I'm a trier of all things. Yeah.
You got to be curious, and I think there's an old thing about the fat T marketer, right? We all have like some deep expertise, but more and more we need to work across the disciplines. But I also think there was a comment around build skills, right? Don't go for the title. And I think the reason social is popular right now is it's moving very quickly. Not everybody understands it. There's a bunch of data that's not being captured. Like, these are marketing problems in any space in marketing, right? So it's more about like, how can you bring the skills that you might have through that experience to bear, and not just chase the CMO title, but maybe if you start talking about those skills, who knows what role they might give you.
Yeah, a great answer. I always say the CMO is like, I think of myself as the conductor of an orchestra. You have to know a little bit about everything, right? And so it's always good to dabble in different areas.
If I can just quickly add, I would also say that if somebody claims to know what will happen in the future, you should be really distrustful of that. So you never know what will happen in the future.
Yeah.
In the age of AI, who knows? Who knows what even social media looks like in the future? Maybe it's the agents posting, and maybe it's the agents who are talking to agents. So you never know.
It already is.
Yeah. So I think what will not change is the fundamentals that we talked about. Know the business, know P&L, know the customer. If you focus on those fundamentals and take the job that others don't want, like if you focus on those fundamentals, you'll be well positioned.
Great, Nav. All right, well, we are at time, but what a great panel, guys. Thank you.